we're back with part 3 of our Malifica project here, and this is where things get a little bit complicated to say the least. We did attach our disc, but as you can see, there was massive gaps here, like that you could like physically measure with a ruler. So many hours were spent trying to do this. This gap was a little bit more simple over here. So that was Vallejo plastic putty. Let me see if I can actually. I thought I hit that right around here. Here it is. So this is actually really good stuff. Now it's better on smaller gaps, but which is why we could only use it here. Now I'm going to go in here with a file, and you can file this stuff. That's actually a good thing about it. And what happens is you sort of file away everything else, and you are hopefully left with a filled gap. So I'm just going to try and go for a couple of other lines that I see here. Now this was some more green stuff over here. Again, I did the best I could. There is only so much you can do, especially when it gets to be that hard to reach. Now I don't really care that I'm filing away some paint because, well, we didn't really do much here anyway. We're pretty much using this to hang on to for dear life. Now the green stuff there was more for some structural support. I mean, this also does structural support. Now here, unfortunately, with the green stuff, you really can't do much in the way of filing it. I mean, I can try a little bit. These sanding sticks here offer you a little bit more of an opportunity to do that. Now remember, we are using acrylic paints from this point onwards because, well, we got to paint all this, and we don't have a whole lot of time, unfortunately, to do that. We're going to use Stynylrez primer here on these surfaces. Again, I'm doing what I can here with the file. These sanding sticks actually do a little bit better job of, say, sanding or filing green stuff than just a regular metal file would. This is the same type of equipment that I use on, say, the Song of Ice and Fire miniatures to go after those really pesky mold lines. Same thing on the Reaper Bones. All right, so we'll just have to, that's going to have to be good enough. Maybe I give it another shot here. So Stynylrez primer, we're just going to put that over here on our palette. And what I was going to do was actually take a little bit of this clear purple right here. Because if you've seen some of the other airbrushing videos, you know that it is possible to mix and paint with the primer. So let's see if we can tint this primer here in some way, shape, or form. Oh, let's just, I might even get some green out here, but let's just start with this. Just dust off some of this here. Let's go for it, shall we? No, actually, that's, now I have to make sure there's enough primer in there at least to prime this. But, look at that. That's, not too shabby. I mean, again, that's primer. And that's not doing too bad of a job of matching things. And I might even, just to kind of level some things out here, I might even put a little bit more on there. It's almost like we're just doing regular painting here. And I'm just going to look around for some other areas before we get to the, now that part there, that's probably going to get, well, what the heck. We'll just hit this right now. I was thinking of adding some green to that. The heck with it. I'm just going to go right in with this purple, because it's just going to get hit with the green anyway as far as an object source lighting type of deal. So we're not just priming, we're painting. Actually, at one point we used to call this primer painting. You can paint with primer. It is possible. We're doing it right now. And you can see that sticks no problem over the wet oil paint, and I didn't actually seal that or anything. I will be sealing this afterwards. All right, back to our lovely purple primer there. All of a sudden, it just looks like part of the portal. It doesn't look like it's just a big old thing of green stuff sitting there. I think this is the last of our green stuff over here that needs to be covered up. And I'll just extend this primer over this here. We can go, again, we can go back in with the green, but in some ways, I don't know. It's not necessarily the worst color right there. So I think we've got that pretty well set. Yeah, so we've got that primed now. I might even, oh, we got another area over here too. Now that's going to be more of a skin tone there, but let's just hit it with this for now. There'll be more green stuffing to do over here, and I even see an area there that just has no paint period. So just shoving that brush down in there. And then we're going to go over this, like I said, with our acrylic paints. But now we don't just have primer there. We've actually got some color. Might even hit this area with a little bit of that primer. So now that all of a sudden the primer is really, now it's just looking like some of our original base coat color there. Not quite so alien. That's not too shabby at all. That's a decent little start. I know this is a little bit unusual for the materials and planning phase. But the first thing we're actually going to do now that we've got this primed, we're actually going to head over to the back of this portal thing. So this right here, let's see how I'm going to have to hold this baby. I guess you can see that. So we do have some eyes here. We got tons of mouths. We'll do a little bit of our green, a little bit of our purple. And we're going to be using a lot of the Reaper Clears. Well, there's sort of a face right there. So we're going to start out with the Reaper Clears. And we're going to see just how targeted of a glaze that we can get with this. Okay. We won't necessarily be removing paint the way we did with the oils. But I think it could be interesting here. So what we're going to do is get that paint out on the palette. And we're going to paint this portal next. We have some of those colors out on the palette now. We've got a clear yellow, orange, green, red, blue, purple, our two off-whites. Let's have at this. What I might do is kind of start at the exterior here, and we'll maybe work our way in. And yeah, I'm just going to kind of access a little bit of that primer over there. At the same time. Now we're going to have to do a bunch of stuff with their mouths over here. Obviously, it can't just be, well, green like this, necessarily. But we got to get this started here. And yes, I'm going to have to carry some of that out onto the perimeter. And here we're going to create a phthalo green, we're just going to take some of the blue, not blue liner, the clear blue. We're going to mix that with the clear green. We could use green liner also. There is phthalo green. There is a clear phthalo green. There is. I was just trying to keep this as simple as possible. So you see, that looks an awful lot like what we had to start with. So I'm just kind of get my way. I'm going to work from the outside in. Working from the outside in. Again, we got faces here. We got all kinds of mayhem going on in this thing. we'll do the best that we can. Is this ideal? This is most definitely not ideal. But you're going to run into, I mean, if you haven't already, you are bound to run into situations with miniatures that aren't really ideal, that are sort of the opposite of ideal. Sort of like, oh my gosh, this is not, how is this going to work situations. And again, over here, I'm just kind of starting to set this area up for some glowy stuff over here too. This is kind of our darker mix. We did it on the other side. We'll do it on this side. Now I could have gone in and sprayed some clear coat and it's done whatever, but as you can see, when the oil dries, you can get this paint to stick to it. It will. Now I'm trying to, as you can see, get more in line with these guys over here. And guess what? We're going to hit them with some of this green too. I'm just going to start blasting more of this green into here. This is why I didn't get too too involved with what was happening in this area, because I knew to mesh that with the new stuff that we're putting in here, some things must be sacrificed. Where's my blue again? And look at this. Look at how close we're getting. You can see there is no difference. I know it doesn't really show up on camera. Well, it sure as heck doesn't even show up in my own eyes as I'm looking at this. And I don't have the filter of a camera interpretation or anything like that. Now, some of these mouths here, maybe they just get to be brighter greens. Maybe this whole exterior edge here is going to be more of a green. It's not until we get in here that we get to more of a fleshy type tone thing, something. And we're just going to hit this with more of a glaze here. It really would be nice if this were oils. I could really plow through this so much faster. Again, back to our throwing a little bit of blue in there. So at least the first 2 or 3 segments are going to be based around this thing. I mean, the rest of this stuff is sort of ancillary. And in fact, I won't have time to film a 4th episode. I'm going to do what I did with the Queen of Onslaught. Remember, we did 3 episodes there. And then I did a Saturday stream where we basically kind of filled in the details, right? The stuff that was going to be too hard just to do on camera here anyway. With the Twitch stream, it's so interactive, it's a little bit different. And now that I know how to make those things permanent as a highlight, you'll be able to see that in the future instead of if I don't make a YouTube video out of it, it goes away like the Caracolila bust did. So yeah, that situation won't happen anymore. And that's actually what Saturday's it's gonna be a little bit of a different type of Saturday. It's gonna be about working with acrylics over actually several oil painted things. This won't be, I might be doing other things in addition to this on the Saturday show. Other things that need to be done. And I thought, you know what, here, let's just, we'll finish them off with acrylics. So now you can see how this gets a little more opaque right here. Little more opacity to it, not just lighter. A little bit more. And what I'm trying to do here, so we're going to try and, I guess, simulate the oils as best as we can here. So we've done our green in there. let's see what happens. We got all these mouths and such. So we're going to take some purple, some red, and what we would like to see is maybe these two sort of combine in some way. Now I'm going to have to go back and keep constantly getting some fresh color here, because just like the oils, it's going to start making mud if I just keep mixing the two together. But I'm hoping the two of them sort of harmonize together. And you can see we're changing up the colors a little bit. In some ways, like what's going on with the other side, we're trying to do that on this side. Here, let's lighten up this purple. Is that feathers? Is that flayed flesh? What is that supposed to be? I really don't know. I really just don't know. But I think you can see what the goal is here. At least I hope that it's starting to translate a little bit what we're trying to do here. To take advantage of that wet greenish glaze. As long as it lasts. Now I could have maybe I give that like a spritz or something with the water bottle. So again, a little bit more pink here. A little bit more towards the pink, then back towards our purple. And obviously the priority is where there's these areas of green, where the paint hasn't dried yet. I can only do so much of it, but look at, see, even there, it is possible maybe to do a bit of a glazing or some kind of wet blending here. Nowhere near as easy as what we might do with our typical approach with the oils, but still, you know what? I'm gonna let a little bit of the maiden flesh get in there. So I think, yeah, we're changing our colors here. As it works towards the interior, it gets a little bit more of the fleshy type color, a little less of the glowy green disc type color. And we've gotten ourselves almost to the center of this particular Tootsie Roll, or Tootsie Pop, I guess I should say. Maybe even a little bit more of the purple here. I think that's about what we can do, because we're getting stuff that's drying over here. Enough of that. I see. Perhaps I'm going to get some more of my blue and green clears out here, because perhaps maybe even a little bit of darker glazing. So again, that's not the worst as far as being able to do a little bit of wet blending there, just kind of on the fly. Look at this. See, now look at this. Maybe we do get a little bit of our darker green into some area, and that's pretty dark green right there. We don't want it to all just be that dark green color necessarily. On these tendrils that start to work their way out, we're gonna hit that with some darker green, and now we'll flip this over here. Get a little bit of my maiden flesh color in there. And now it does what we're starting to, I'd say, close that gap between what's acrylic, well, what parts didn't exist not long ago, to what parts are, yeah. We've got this. Giving it that hint of the green in some places here before we maybe try to lighten this up some more even as an area of object source lighting potentially. Okay. Yeah, and sorry I don't have the blue background, the normal blue background set up here. I was filming the Dark Sword video and I kind of forgot to put that back. And at this point it really doesn't matter. So I apologize that we've got the lines behind us here. I know that's changing some of my, not my focus really, but it's changing some of the white balance. That's really the main reason that's there, is because of white balance. It'll be there for the next part of this, which again, I'm just gonna have to do that on Twitch. We did it with the Queen, and I actually kind of like the way that worked, because to have that many hours of videos that I need to edit and render, that would be a little bit much. I mean, as it is, we're going to be close to 9 hours of this anyways, so there. Okay, we've got the darker green going around that edge. Maybe a little bit lighter here now. I could, there's going to be a point where I actually dive into the yellow. That's when I get closer to the interior here. I'm sticking with the maiden flesh to lighten this, because what that's going to do, it's not going to make it quite such a yellowy green, and that's going to go in with the purple, I think, a little bit better. So again, now this is just almost straight up object source lighting here, that we're just kind of dusting onto this. Same with our book over here. This guy is going to get hit with some more. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I do go run and grab the backdrop before then. Maybe I'll do that before the next more detailed segments. Now this has nothing on there. That's got to have some kind of lighting to it. So we're going to take some of that maiden flesh, and it's sort of kind of that dry brush thing again. It's not like you haven't seen that before. Didn't really like that, so I'm going to wipe it away. Now, since this is going over the dry paint, you can really see that this is what would have happened with the oils too. If we were doing this with the oils, it would look exactly the same. It just, well, a couple of things. First of all, it wouldn't be drying. Second of all, I would have a hard time holding it like this. So that was another reason why to go with the acrylics. Now, I don't know how many of you saw the Twitch session on the, was that the Mantic Chimera? Well, in that case, I could just, there was a big old wooden plaque. So they got this comparatively small base here. It's really not much for me to hang on to. Whereas that Mears miniature, I had a huge base, that a wooden plaque that I could hang on to. I just don't have that advantage here. So look at that. That's that went from 0 to pretty well integrated in not a whole lot of time. Back to our A little bit of additions of green here. Now I'm really hoping, oh, and of course most of it's going to get covered by a wing. Which wing is the wing that goes there? Not that. I think this is the wing that goes there. So that's how much you're going to see of it. So if you're wondering why I'm not really all broken up over what's going on back there, that's why. Pretty much all of, there's tons of area. I've literally spent hours here on areas that are going to be mostly covered up. So I'm really not going to sweat the details like that. And that's just how it's going to be. Oh, look, we're doing the same type of brushstroke here. Very much as we did with the oils. It's just a different medium now. And now that I see how much of this is going to be covered up and wiped out anyway, you know what? Well, you know what's going to happen? We're gonna ramp up this lighting here. I don't really care. With that much covering it and in the way, I am not. It's not worth killing myself trying to reach in here and paint all this stuff. I am, however, going to take a little bit of yellow to this green. And in a couple places right here. I know it was supposed to be working on the portal, but I just wanted that stuff to dry. Ah, look at that. Look at that. That's not so bad. Starts to change the color temperature a little bit. And now, you know, yeah, this is, I know it didn't necessarily look like a whole bunch when we were painting this area, but all that while I kind of knew, or at least I didn't know for sure. I had a suspicion. Like all this, with these mouths here, got this big old thing there. I don't care. It's all just gonna be object source lighting here. Don't really care if that much of it's going to be obscured by wings. I might as well get the added interest that this provides. And I just stepped it up again a little bit in brightness here. Oh, and by the way, get used to the clear green and clear yellow because that's a lot of what's going to happen with a lot of our eyes. Color goes somewhere, it must go everywhere, and this is another way we're going to do that. It's another way we're going to make sure we kind of spread the love around these colors in the eyes, like, oh, I don't know, like this. Not like I'm losing all of the stuff we did underneath there. Look at this. Mr. Big Old Eyeball down here. Would I have liked to have been able to paint that without our little feather duster in the way? You bet. But I tried. It was assemble it or not. There was no, that's about how it was going to go. It was either going to be assembled or not assembled. Because there's so many other, it's literally touching, one thing is touching another thing that's touching another thing. So back to our column here. Ooh, what's going to happen on this side? Now I'm going to go back to maybe a little bit more of a, here, let's get a touch of that blue here. Get rid of some of the excess. The funny thing is, am I really painting any that much differently than I would with the oils? It's different in that the stuff is underneath is dry and it's not wet blending. But brushstroke wise, is this really all that different? I mean, don't we do this a lot with the oils right here? Now, here I got to work a lot harder to be able to do something like that. What I just did with the oils, You don't quite have to worry about that dry brush look. Here I got to worry about that. I have to be more concerned. And guess what? I'm going to even start putting that out here. I know this should be a separate segment and all that, but I'm just going to do that. We're just going to have this be a mashup of a bunch of different segments where we kind of wander around this thing instead of nice, neat little, well, we're going to do this part, then we're going to do this part. Nope. We're just going to bounce all over this thing. All over the place. It'll be out of control, completely and mad. And, another reason why we didn't do too much over here. So, well, okay, we'll not, yeah, all of this stuff is going to get hit by lighting. I am so glad that I did not screw around. Wow, there's just lighting everywhere here. Yeah, because I just realized that torch there. So the next segment, what are we going to do? We're just going to keep going with object source lighting here because I'll deal with that later. I'll just deal with that part later. Now I will try to leave as much of the skin part here. Also, too, there's a big old wing that's going to go in here. So I'm not going to really paint very much over here because that's going to get pretty much zonked as well. Yeah, I think in our next segment, what I'm going to do is this light. We're going to cast it over here and onto his head, get that set up. Again, let's get some of that over here too. Over those teeth. Even back here. I am really glad that I did not spend an extraordinary effort on things like those mouths. Something just told me, just wait. Don't be hasty. See what's going to happen. Go on from there. Okay, that's... In some ways, though, that does make me happy because I wasn't quite sure what this was going to look like. And now, just with the paint on that, I can deal with that green stuff there. It actually does add a lot of strength to it. This is actually pretty darn strong considering all the pieces and parts and everything else. So we are going to continue with our object source lighting. We're really going to focus up here because I don't want to waste any more time than I have to. So object source lighting all in here, and we're going to do that next. So time for the object source lighting on some of these areas in the back here. Now I actually decided against, and I might still put it on to cover all this stuff here, but there is an advantage of having this as a backdrop. You're actually going to get to see, I think, the green that I'm going to add here a little bit better. I think it might have gotten lost. Speaking of white balance, might have all gotten lost. So we're going to make sure we have some blue into this. And how exactly we're going to reach this area is a mystery to me. We're going to try. And that's already, so that's kind of on the darker side there, which is why we're going to focus on stuff like the hair here. Now we're going to lighten that up. We are going to throw a little bit of, I almost called it cadmium yellow. You can see that this is going to happen. That's going to just happen a lot. So I do apologize. There's going to be a lot of misnaming of colors here. This is actually an easier way to hang on to this here. The acrylics giveth and taketh away, just like the oils giveth and take away. What do I have? I have the option of actually hanging on to this thing. An option I did not have before. And once again, you can see the acrylics just cover this no problem. Actually, I can see a whole area in here that just never even got paint in it. Can see how that covers that up, no problem. No problem at all. Touch more here. And let's make sure we have some on our metals over here. So we're gonna go with a little bit of a gentler touch now that we're on this. I think it's going to reach all the way over here towards this book, potentially even onto the little tentacle here. I'm taking it easy on this sort of mid-tone slash darker color here. But remember, these are Reaper clears after all. These are not blot out the sun. That is why I keep thinking of them as phthalo green, phthalo blue, because guess what? Those are semi-transparent colors that can, when you glaze them, really do some impressive work. Now here, see, I'm okay with going over some of the stuff we did here because those were just some quick blends there. We did not spend a ton of time over here meticulously painting away at all this stuff. We really didn't. Really did not. See, a little bit of that maiden flesh, what's it going to do? It will increase the opacity. It'll increase the lightness of it, which is not dissimilar to what we sometimes do with the oils when we add things like the cadmium yellows. When we add our off-white yellow now that I keep wanting to call it Naples yellow, even though it is most definitely not. Yeah, I'm definitely getting on board with some of what's going on here. A bit more, shall we say? Maybe even here on the skin tone. Well, now I'm really glad I put those greens into the skin tones because if we're gonna have all this greenish light bouncing around all over the place, not a that was also fortuitous. And to be honest, I'm kind of liking the unifying effect that this is having, this object source lighting here. To me, it's starting to tie a lot of potentially disparate elements together. I'm actually way more excited. Just seeing what I did back here made me way more excited about this. And I know I should be talking about what I'm doing here, but you know what? Just based on conversations that I've had with people this weekend that have had some really frustrating times with their painting, like to the verge of giving up on it. And these are people that have done it for a while. I've had just a bunch of conversations in the last 36 hours. There's times where miniatures just there's times where miniatures you just look at the thing and it paints itself. I mean, really, like the brushes stand up, they get up and they attack the miniature, and the miniature just gets painted. And then there's other ones where you really fight at it, and then there's ones where you think things are going okay, but to say, are they really going that okay? And I guess the priority here is to say, well, yeah, that's okay to kind of go through those moments, and not everything will be a masterpiece. Sometimes there's figures that the best you can do is say it's done. Literally, the best you can do is say, well, it's done, it's painted, there's pictures of it, and inevitably what ends up happening is other people see it and they think it's the most phenomenal thing ever. Of course, the figures that you think are your greatest of all time, people just like, yeah, it's painted, it's done. Ah, see what I did there? See what I did there? Yeah, that was a little twist of a phrase, wasn't it? It's all the eyeballs and teeth. That's what did it to me. But aside from saying, don't be so hard on yourself, we're our own worst critics, I don't know, to me, that, and I know I've had to issue that phrase many times, it's starting to sound like the make it pop advice of miniature painting, of just the technical side of things. So on the emotional side of things, I'm starting to think that obviously our own worst critics. Well, yeah, that's what. Well, how do you not be your own worst critic? Just saying that doesn't really solve very much. And in fact, you might just be even more aware of it, more conscious of it, and it gets worse. But sometimes just stepping back, taking a picture of it, because sometimes the camera maybe sees it a little bit different. And then this is a formula that I've kind of forgotten about to tell people sometimes. And if you get 75% of what your original vision was, that is 75% more than what anybody looking at it would know, unless you specifically like a monologuing arch villain told them your plan in advance. So yeah, no monologuing in miniature painting, although this is like a 2.5 hour monologue. So take that for what it is, but there are times where you have to trick yourself. Just like this area here, I like all this already better. And I haven't done any kind of real lighting on this yet. I'm just kind of dusting some of this on here already, because now this looks dramatically different than the other side. To me, it was just like, okay, flip a coin, you got two of the same thing. Who cares? And this, to me, like even this area here, I kind of like that better now. I'm liking what's going on with the books here and these guys more with some of this. Speaking of some of this, I can see now that I've got this over here, I can see, you know what? Guess what I can do? I'm just going to hit that too. And I can hit this too, because that's pretty darn tall up there. So glad I didn't paint it. I was staying away from painting some of these, but like the final things in some of these books here. Boy, am I glad that's what I did. Now I might go back towards and look at how much of a dry brush this is. Oh, we're just gonna go back here and hit some of this. Now, of course, at a certain point, we got to start messing around back here. And here I might do a little bit of opposite world, where the lighter green is on top as opposed to emerging from underneath. So see how we're kind of reversing that a little bit. Why? Because I don't know. To me, I think these teeth, the eyes, those are going to translate a little bit better. And there's a lot of eyes back here still. Just while I have this color here, yeah, to me, this seems like a better plan than going in there to try and do the light from underneath. So this is almost more of I don't want to say a dirty green, but it's not quite as, yeah, it's more like our berry white green. All it was clear green, a little bit of the blue, the clear blue in there, and then some of the maiden flesh. You notice that no white. Oh, look at this. Yeah, I can dust the green over the top of that. So I know I'm kind of not necessarily following exactly where I said I was going to go, but this, see, now I feel better about this. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to have over here, but look at this. We're kind of going the opposite here. This is almost a darker color in some ways over the top of this purple, but it's nice having that under the purple there. And in some ways, it's actually kind of nice that it's not blending. Look at this. I pick up my brush. I don't see all the nasty, well, not nasty, all the purple stuck on that brush. Not happening. Now, in the, gonna take some of our yellow, mix it with the green, and let's just do a little bit more on these flames here. They're getting kind of dark kind of fast, so we're gonna get these more of a mid-tone here because I can really lighten the heck out of this thing. Like in here, that can be way lighter. In fact, and I might darken things here too. So I just took some of the purple, some of the green, mixed that together, and look what's happening. I'm kind of creating a shadow because the light source, this is not object source shading, this is object source lighting. So I'm making a shadow there out of this so that when the light hits that, it actually looks like light. All right. Let's maybe attack that here with a little bit of our, again, almost called it cadmium yellow. I could use some fluorescent green. No, I'm not going to use the fluorescent green. We're not going to use that. I was tempted to, not going to do that. I guess part of it is I don't always want to even, I don't necessarily want to rely on that all the time. It's like, oh, it's fluorescent time. Maybe it's best that that doesn't always happen. Again, working out some mid-tones in these flames. Now, I think the acrylic fluorescent green would have a massive impact. Another reason why I'm thinking of that is I don't necessarily want to overpower a lot of the skin tones and some of the more subtle things. As much as I like these glowy guys here, there's so much glowing things, it could potentially overwhelm it. We don't want that. So yeah, our flame is looking a little bit lighter, and we can certainly go beyond that. Can certainly go beyond that. What the heck? I'm going to, all right. Oh, here's our dragon white again. Oh, look, and that actually stayed in there that time. Yay. Some of our white with the yellow here. And we'll really hit a couple of these areas on the base of that flame. And hopefully we get enough of a difference here with our portal. Back to this side. So get back to the whole conversation of you ain't gonna love everything you paint. That the more you paint, the more that might happen to you because you're just painting more things. But there's miniatures that I thought, wow, this thing is going to be so fantastic. And part of the problem was I thought, oh, this miniature is going to be so fantastic, which led to perhaps expectations that were unmeetable. There was no way it was ever going to meet my what I had in mind for it. There's no way it was going to meet that. There's other times where I said, "Ugh, man, this figure, this is not going to be very much." And sometimes those end up being some of my favorite figures. And I do hope this doesn't just sound like idle rambling here, but just based on some heavy duty conversations in recent days, just seems like people could use, I don't want to say reassurance, but I don't know, just a little bit of a some kind of encouragement that says, well, yeah, it's not always going to go as you hope, so that's why not to get so down on yourself, because it's just going to happen. You never know when. Here's some of our brighter, this is a metal surface here, so why not really bring this out, get some nice highlight slash reflections, whatever here. If this wasn't metal, I don't think I'd really go quite that intense, but yeah, now the other side of this is starting to have a good look to it. Now here's another thing. We'll grab the other wing after we do some more stuff on this. I'm gonna grab that other wing, and we're gonna see just, well, can we see any of this? Because there's one wing that comes over. Yeah, actually, yeah. Ooh, that's right. Before we go any further here, let's grab the correct wing. I think that's this one. Ah, all right, good. Good, good, good. So I didn't miss. Oh, you know what? We might be doing some object source lighting stuff on this wing actually next. And maybe the portal stuff is going to be even more towards the end. Wow. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. I thought I had a pretty good handle on what was going to be lit from that wing, but well, so much for that. Continuing to emphasize some of our lights here. Now that I know there's nothing blocking that light, and this is outside of his head, this is the closest thing to that light source, so and again, I realize that this is kind of bouncy. It's really tough to keep this on screen here. And that's without the wings on it. Couple more additions of light here. And I don't know how much more I really want to add just yet to that. Before I do anything with that, I want to rectify what we saw over here with this. That is because we did this to basically match the glow from the portal. Now we've got to do something entirely different here. So we're going to get some of our yellowing. Well, we have some green out there. And back at it, because this here is pretty close too. Gonna get rid of some of that excess. Another reason why I didn't get in here and do lots and lots and lots of detail painting. I did the best I could as far as sort of staging a little bit of the eventual color here. But yeah, it's an awful lot of object source lighting that's got to go on this thing here. Pretty much the entire wing on this side is getting caught by either the portal or that torch. And I'm sticking with the warmer stuff here for the torch area, or the sensor, or the what are those other things? The cauldron. It's more like the Olympic flame. Touch more yellow in that, and then maybe a hint of our maiden flesh. It will also, it lightens it, it makes it more opaque, but it keeps it from getting too much on the cool side, because we'd prefer that towards the back over here with where the portal lighting is going to be. But these clear paints really were the ideal choice. If we had to do kind of acrylics here, substitute acrylics for the what remained to be done with the oils, this really was the best option. With their intensity, but also their semi-translucency, guess what? Just makes them like oils. I know I've said that if you wanted to sort of get yourself mentally prepared maybe for doing oils, but still be using acrylics, using the clear paints with some of the kind of off whites, that might be your bet. All right. So technically this all is, we're doing object source lighting for the torch slash cauldron. Let's put this wing back on here. Well, gee, the wing is even closer, so I'm really glad I did that now. Oh yeah. So much stuff being covered. One thing in the way of another. And if I had painted all kinds of stuff on these, there just would have been no way to even see it. Now I will come out here. This is a bit of a cooler version here. So if we take the white with this, even a little bit of that touch of that clear blue here. It's almost like we're using our berry white green. And guess what? More object source lighting. But we're sort of changing the color temperature and maybe having this not be quite so intense. And I mean, this looks like this massive highlight. This is actually really dark. This is barely a middle tone that we're putting on here. I'd like to, if possible, save the brightest of bright colors, well, sort of for the very end. If that's possible, it may not be. I'm going to try and go a little bit lighter here now on that portion of the wing that is closest. So I think what we're going to do is we're actually going to grab our other wing and make sure that we've got that under control too. And then we will start to go back to the portal, maybe add some of these lighter colors onto that too. Okay. And we'll just call it there. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab that other wing, the off wing, that's actually quite literally hiding the cauldron, I believe. Yeah, you won't even be able to see the cauldron with the wing in front of it. So yeah, let's get some lighter colors on that. we'll do that next. So to give you just a bit of an idea of how much we get to see of our cauldron from this side, that's how much you get to see. So that's a pretty efficient job of covering that. Now that's practically touching it here. So needless to say, we're going to be doing a whole lot of lighting stuff here. Yeah. So, and we got to do much more over here. So this entire side's all just going to be object source lighting. I mean, not a surprise, not a big deal. Let's go for it. Actually, I'm going to throw, I might as well put more of this out here. Clear yellow, clear green, some of the maiden flesh. And this area gets way more than I originally thought. And it's practically touching it, so it has to be pretty intense here too. Like really an intense green here, so we'll do what we can. Already we do have some decent underlighting here on this part. Thank goodness. But we're shifting this a bit more towards the warm. I knew it would be warmer here, but I didn't realize that it really had to be this warm of a green. It was pretty much impossible to tell when the body was not glued to the base. Once it was glued to the base, then I was going to be able to get a little better handle on that. Yeah, we're just going to... Let's go lighter again. I realize this is not as dramatic as, say, painting a bunch of eyeballs and teeth, but guess what? We're not going to paint a bunch of eyeballs and teeth because that process is going to be extremely repetitive, especially now with it just being done with the acrylics. But these structural things, you don't need to see how a bunch of all of the teeth are painted. What you kind of need to see, if you're going to be painting this thing, you need to know what the pitfalls are. You need to know it's like, oh, yeah, okay, that could be rough. I better watch out for that. That's going to be more helpful to you than just seeing me paint a bunch of the eyeballs and teeth. Well, we'll paint a couple of them, like I said, but I don't have time for a 4-hour video. And, well, neither do you. Much as we'd like to. Now I'm going to go even lighter here. I'm just going to go with what's over here. We're really lighten this up. Because I do believe this is where it's at. Like I said, the flame is practically touching it. If this is not bright, I don't know what's going to be. These must not be terribly flammable feathers. Of course, it is green fire. Okay, I'm going to actually put this, after doing some lights just in this general area right here, I'm going to put this up against that flame again and just see if this is in the right direction or if I need to expand this lighter area. Look at this. I mean, this is a really intense light here. All right, it's about like, sort of like that. So we actually, gee whiz, we could actually get some more down here. And I'm going to have to green stuff the heck out of that because unfortunately there was another piece that I saw from the other one, and I just kind of automatically put it there, and I actually had to carve that out, like literally carve it out with a wood carving tool. And yeah, that wasn't terribly fun. So yeah, don't put the eyeball there. There's a wing that goes there. So this, as you can see, is a little bit more of a bluish tinge to it. And that's it for, we don't want to do too much more. The rest of this, it'll just have to be done once it's on there and attached. I may let a little bit of my lighting get down here. Mostly because there's light just bouncing all over the place, so. And I'm not painting that many eyes. Not what, well, they would just kind of reflect this light anyway, right? Because they're supposed to be sort of a shiny surface. So back over here, like we talked about, gonna get a little bit lighter now. Not quite so much. Look at that. Now that really starts to stand out. This is what I was hoping for when I put these darker tones in there. Trying to go as soft as I can on this. Now look where my hands are on that brush. And look at the green even going over the top of the purple there. I can do some other glazes inside of that too. I don't think I'm going to do, well, I'm saying that now, but over here in these mouths, I'm not quite so sure I want to do some of that same sort of lighter reddish, semi-opaque glaze in there that I did. Now this is going to get more fleshy as we get in here, but I would like to maintain as much of this greenish stuff out here, especially on these perimeter faces, as I can. All right, we're going to try and cool this down a bit. I'm just throwing some blue into this. And picking up some of the edges of the rocks here. There's some more of the tentacle type things going on there. Okay. More like it. Maybe even a bit out here. Because, yeah, I think that Queen of Onslaught or whatever, I think I still did an 8-hour session after the 3 videos. Now, of course, that was just a lot of finer tidy up things that we did on that. And a lot of it was the repetitive things. Just like I will literally be painting a bazillion eyeballs on that stream, so it'll be mostly just the repetitious stuff. Obviously, all of this, it's way more important to get to this kind of stuff and just paint a few eyeballs and teeth, and just knowing that we will rinse and repeat that process many, many times. The clear green really does come, well, all the clears really come into the rescue. this is what I had hoped would be the case when I realized just early on, yeah, there was no way this could all be done in oils. As you can see with what we're doing here, just from a reality standpoint or a logistical standpoint, we would have had to wait a couple of days just before we could have even gotten to this part, and it would have just been isolated to this. It would have been all of this other stuff would have had to been done at another time. We are going to dive into some lighter colors there, because then it'll make these not be quite so just kind of isolated. Now we do need, I think, get some lighter tones on our these couple of dudes over here around the column. I know, see, you can't even see that, so there's no point. No point in me even doing that. It's just a waste of video time. I'm gonna go even lighter here if I can. It is sort of nice to know that I'm not actually just chucking cadmium red and phthalo green all over my hand there, which would be kind of unfortunate if that was to get all over painted parts of the Mini or other things. I'm just going to guess these little balls right here are eyes, maybe. It's hard to tell what they're supposed to be. I'm just going to maybe just sort of say that they're eyes. Throwing a little bit of the yellow into that. Okay, we are going to, I'm going to throw some lighter pinks in here. See how that goes. Yeah, okay, good. The clear red is still alive. A little bit of the maiden flesh in there. Let's have at this. Now, sadly, you're inevitably going to get more of a dry brush here. That wouldn't happen with the oils. So I did moisten the brush a little bit more so we lose some of that, well, a lot of the dry brush effect anyways. So that initial purple is working pretty well. This was kind of what I had envisioned for it. Now back over here, just well, that's not that much of a liquid, but liquid enough to make it flow. And we can certainly go lighter from here. Okay, so our next segment will just be, we'll just stay with this. Well, we're going pretty well here on this. We'll stick with the crazy portal thing here. Like you do. There's another reason too why I just kind of like the Queen of Onslaught. It is to also help out creature casters, since, well, with the no conventions, it's harder for them to do their releases, which would have been like a ReaperCon sort of thing. So hopefully those 8, 9, whatever hours spent doing this on the live stream helps them a little bit more of our pink here. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure. I looked at this several times and just didn't know exactly what I was going to want to do with it. There's another reason I'm doing the pink. Why? Well, it's a lot of the same stuff we did over here. At least now it is somewhere else. It literally is. Color goes somewhere. It goes everywhere. This is the everywhere in the everywhere. Might have to throw a little bit more of the maiden flesh out there, but this is just such a... It is not that light of a color. See, now this is almost going over the top of some of the green that we did there. We're kind of layering. We went green over the top of the purple. Now we're going with some pink over the top of the green because the pink is a little bit lighter. And because it is that the Reaper clears, have that semi-translucency about them, that is why they're the closest acrylic substitute to oils. I know that does sound weird. Here, let's get a little bit more of our main flesh. Now that is the one thing we have to deal with is the clogged jars. The oils never clog. Are we good here? I think so. So even lighter with our pink here. Speaking of light, a nice light touch. That might need to have a little more of a liquid in it. Now maybe, yeah, you know what? Maybe those little bulbous things are not going to be eyes. Maybe some are, some aren't. I don't know. We are going to get a little bit lighter here, though. Into here, over here too. And eventually some things that once they get to a certain level of lightness, I don't want to say it starts to blend in with the greens, but it's a little harder to tell. Okay, is that a red? Is that a green? Picking up some of these teeth over here. There's a lot of teeth going on. My goodness. Now some more of our maiden flesh, maybe even a touch of the maggot white. Gotta keep that somewhat liquid here. What's interesting is I think a good portion of what we do in the next phase of this is going to actually be some darker glazes of all things. We're going lighter, lighter, lighter. There will be some, I think, some darker glazes into this. Like the stuff down in there, I'm thinking more of use a darker glaze to achieve some contrast down in there as opposed to just continuously lightening and lightening things. And look at the difference that somewhat warmer color create. That the teeth start to stand out a little bit more, not just because of the value contrast, those being lighter, stands out because there's a little bit of color to it. All right. Little more here too. Somewhat. This will be kind of the last of the. Where we're adding these lighter color. Then we're going to go back into this. We'll do some darker glazes. Who knows? Maybe even paint some of the eyeballs. It's just there's one or two back here. I mean, there's a row of about 20 of them just right here. Teeth. Is okay. That is a tooth over there. I think it is. This is a question up here. Boy. Well, I'll do this for right now. That may be something that changes back. I don't know. It may also be hit with a darker glaze. These teeth over here. So some of these are in question as to exactly what's going to happen with those. Okay, teeth. There's actually a little eye. Oh, look at. Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's more teeth down in there. But fortunately, I think the glazes are going to take care of that. I think the glazes will get down in there and get some of that separation. Now I won't have the quite the same sort of capillary action, which it just occurred to me. Now the Reaper clears of what would you, I don't know if you want to call it, of regular paint. They do a fairly good job of that. Part of it is because, well, you don't have white in there. So since there's no white in it, it makes them a little bit thinner, which is why they're more translucent. But that thinness does let them get down into some crevices. It's one of the reasons why we use those so much for preliminary glazes and that sort of thing. So hopefully that also becomes advantageous for us. And I think I am going to put the blue backdrop up now because I think with what we've got, yeah, I think at this point now it'll be more of a distraction because we're focused on this area here. We're not doing those overall wings and some of those broader areas. So I think with the focus starting to tighten in, yeah, we'll get that chamois cloth backdrop there. Right, as it stands, it's not like this is horrendous back here, and we've really only just we have not spent a lot of time on this area either. This is another area where perhaps some kind of a crimson glaze. I would say perhaps a red liner with the clear red. So you'll probably see the liner paints come out too. I would say at least the red liner and green liner for sure. And that might be able to be probably the first action you see with those colors. But I think we've set now. Almost think of this as that initial shaded base coat. Think of this as what we've been doing here as just a shaded base coat. Now we're going to go in with some more targeted glazes. Again, we'll bring out the clear green with the green liner, the red liner, and the clear red. And we're going to be using a lot of those together, I think. So we'll get to that next. We're back at it again. We've got some of that red liner out here. We have our purple. That's our clear purple. We'll start off with some glazes here, see how this works. We just have one of those Cotman liner brushes. First targets will be these areas. Actually, boy, I think paint's a little bit darker here than I thought it was, which is not bad. I'm also going to do some clear red mixed with that. And that's going to cover over some of these teeth that we've done here, we're just going to be painting those back in with our lighter colors anyways. I mean, we did this even with the oils too. But as you can see, these glazes are going to dry fast enough that we'll be able to go easily back in even during this segment here and do some lighter things. Now I'm also going to keep, it's just some water here. Now this is something that I started doing more with the oils, is have some of this on the brush. So it's just that kind of a little bit of a load of paint here, and then I take some water and I just sort of spread that glaze around further. This is actually something that happened with the oils first, and then it's sort of migrated over this way to the acrylic side of things, and I think you can really see, I mean, straight away the sort of contrast we're getting. And remember that that's going to be magnified even more once we get those lighter colors on our teeth and stuff. But you can see it gets a little bit more watery now as we work our way out towards this green here. I don't necessarily want to even wipe out all that green. I'd like to keep some of that if I can. So here we've started with that more of a reddish type of glaze. Now I'm going to actually go over to a purple here. And we're sort of sticking to this side of the, I mean, it's sort of a mouth. You never quite know with these things. But I think we'll go with that. More of the purple here. And this is quite a, see, like how transparent that is. Which is why those, it's almost like here we're, I don't want to say we're doing alizarin crimson. It's almost like a brown matter over here, because brown matter is also a little bit on the thinner side of things. Okay. Continue with these darker glazes, and it is not only just the red liner and the clear red. We also have this purple here. But you can see I kind of go into that little container of water and just sort of extend the glaze. Once again, out here in this area, you can still see some of the green that's in there. Still see a little touch of that green. And out here, maybe it's just wiser to have more of the purple in there. Now, remember too, I'm going to do some of the clear, the clear and the green liner glazing on the exterior out here too. Now, more of the purple glazing out here. Yeah, taking that little bit of water there, we extend this out. So you could, I mean, there's a distinct difference between the top half and the bottom half here, and we're what, 4 minutes in? 4 minutes. It might not have been, what would be the difference with the oils? Maybe we wouldn't have to do quite as much of this glazing here. There would have been a little more of the wet blending going on. That is very possible. Now, also very fortunate to have things like the clear reds, clear greens, and even the liner paints. This could be done with the, I guess you could do it even with like the GW glazes. Oh, that's actually a little skull forming right there. It could be the contrast paints. I didn't want to use those this time around. I wanted to stick with the clear and liners because I want to keep it as simple as possible. I would, one of the colors, if I was doing the ye old contrast paints, I'd probably be going with some of the. There is actually like a second glaze happening here to make that a little bit darker. You would have the Flesh Tear red for sure. You would probably the Blood Angel red. The Shyish purple might be a little bit on the dull side for what we're trying to do here, but it could still work. The Achillean green and the Warp Lightning green would probably be your. You'd have to use those two together to create something like the green clear paint. What's going to happen up here? What will happen up here? I'm going to throw actually a little more of the clear red into that. Let's just see what happens. I don't care about the teeth. It does not matter. That is just not relevant. You can paint those back in. That's easy enough. What's tougher is to get down in here and really get some juicy color in that. Question is, we've got the next row of teeth. Does that end up being just a more transparent version of this red? Does it end up being more of a... Now again, I'm trying to almost think of these guys over here on the side. You know what? Let's do something different. We are going to take our clear green, not clear green, and the green aligner paint. Interesting. Okay, so that's interesting. Huh. Well, value contrast didn't really. Okay, this color is the same level of darkness as what was put on there, but color contrast wins the day here. However, we're still going to glaze some of this over the top, I think. I will wipe some of that away. I could use a sponge, but fingers handier. What is going to happen around this little eyeball here? So what I think I might just do is just kind of spend the next segment after this back here. Maybe paint some of the eyeballs too, because, well, the painting of the eyeballs here is going to be like the painting of the eyeballs everywhere else. Oh my gosh, there's more in here. However, we have to. There's another thing I want to do here. So we're going to take just a touch of the. This is so much like the diazonine purple, actually. So this has a little bit of opacity to it. It cuts down on some of the darkness of it, but it's yet another. Well, it's kind of closer to the original color that we had. I will wipe some of that away. So as we do come back with the lighter colors, yeah, this I think is going to look interesting. Maybe. Oh, see, this might be it too. Now this is again a little bit of the maiden. And I'm in a small amount. That might even be too much. But it is sort of a glazy thing here. Again, using a. Now this is, it's got a little bit of a wear and tear on it. This particular liner brush. I think this is a 0, right? Yeah, it's a 0. Yep, Winsor Newton 0. It's a, but it has the 111 designation. So we sneak some of our purple out here as a little bit of a glaze into our green. Now, some of that green liner. Now with some of the eyes, you'll be definitely seeing, we'll bring out the cadmium yellow, cadmium yellow light, the yellow clear paint. Thank you very much. And I'm seriously just, well, it's also 5 o'clock in the morning, so and I've got 9 hours of streaming yet to do today. So if it, there could be a lot of failed words in the live stream too. Back to some of our greens in here. Now, I do like this. I'm going to put some of this over. Oh, look at, see it now. It's not so much that it's adding any kind of dark value there, but it's a different color. Like, wow, a lot different. So that's starting to do some things. It's back to our red liner, some of our clear, and once again, we'll touch that brush into the water there. Very much what I was doing with the oil paints. Now we'll just, I don't think I'll go with the lighter teeth color just yet. I think I'll save that maybe for the segment after this where we work on some of the eyes. And again, I do apologize. Those eyes will have to suffice for eyes everywhere else, I think. There's just so much stuff going on back here. And, well, actually, you've seen it done from the other, but this is not on the other one. This is a totally different thing, and I think this is the higher value for you to see this because, well, I don't even know. I don't even know how I'm going to approach some of these things yet. And I thought it could be, well, fun for you to see how I try and make the choices, the decisions, because that might help you when it comes to making, well, not necessarily just on this, but just overall. I like the idea of a little bit more of a really deep red here. Just again, trying to take some of this and see, look, I can even do a little bit of a glaze there, knock some of those things down. But just going in here with as many darks as I can, but as darks that are different colors, darks that also say reflect some of what's been done elsewhere. Because so much of what's happening with some of these little interior mouth things, well, that's going to be done out on the rest of the body. Now, just like we did the maiden flesh with the purple, this is a touch of, here, let's get a little bit of that purple into this. This could be fun right here. It's where this is very much what we did with the oils on the first King of Malifica. We actually took some of this brighter, lighter, kind of crazy semi-opaque red and did glazes out there. Now this, there's a part of me that is preferring, even though I didn't think that would be the case. I really thought I would just be doing these things in some form of green out here. But this is definitely having a little bit of an appeal to me here. Because it is again carrying some of that. It's a magic portal as well. So I think it's possible for a lot of different things to be totally acceptable. At least I would hope so. So some of the things that I thought were going to work well, making some changes. I thought I would be better off with all of these being more of a green out here, but not necessarily. Some of the eyes might also get a little bit lost. I will, however, I got my dark green here, our green liner, and this I think is where it can work. Let's hit it again. And I think right over here, especially since it's so close to our rock here, which that's going to probably need some glazes too to darken down. A little purple with that red. Ooh, that's nice and intense. We get the water in here, more of the water. And you can see how we're really, and again, we're scumbling, right? But this with the oils, now if this was wet oils, no big deal. Or dry oils, not a problem. But here, if this is wet oils, we wouldn't want to be really doing that kind of hard scumbling and wiping and everything else. We'd have to do more of that panel line wash process where we just touch the brush to it. Now, and the thing is, you can see there's a fair amount of capillary action to these clears. You don't necessarily have to use those contrast paints. And also, contrast paints have a slight gloss to them, well, more than a slight gloss. The Reaper Clear paints, zero gloss. I mean, like negative gloss. They are anti-shine by comparison. I know that creates a little bit of a border right there, but I don't think that's such a bad thing. I am going to attempt for this is more of a cleanup glaze. What does that mean? It's just in areas where I think, maybe there's a little bit of almost like a dry brush texture. I hit them like this, and that tends to take that away. So I think that is our next segment then. We're teeth and eyes here on the portal. We'll just keep hammering away at this thing. I don't believe I will be able to attach the wings. There's just too many other things going on here, and I need to keep this thing easier to get at some of those spots. I might try to blue tack those in place for the images so you can kind of get an idea. Although, I don't know, it would be nice for you to see this stuff here in those pictures as opposed to just obscured by a wing. I was glad that I noticed some of those things on the wings when I looked at it and went, oh, yeah, they catch a little more light. So get more of the red. I did not think the red and purple was going to leak out that far. Not like I couldn't take some of the lighter greens and go over that. Now what I am going to do is mess around here. Boy, this is so much like the Egyptian violet with the, say, like the titanium white. It's so similar. And now you can see we're starting to get some purple in here where we've done our darker reds down here in the mouth maybe. See, I can steal a little bit of lighter, some of that lighter purple in there. But it's kind of a grayish color. You should really be able to see it here. Yeah. You should really be able to see that here. There's a whole nother, there's an interesting face over there too. Wow, that is darker than I expected. Did not think that had gotten so light. Or yeah. I think we've got ourselves a nice, I don't want to say pinkish color, but something that's got some of the clear red into it. This is, I will just call it kind of strands of muscle here. It really does look like muscle fibers. So this is where we start to go back in with some of our lighter stuff. We did the glazing, but this is more of a targeted sort of a light here. We're not like here we've kind of mixed up some really specific colors for this, and they're a little bit more intense of a color. A little more of the clear red worked its way in there. Now again, we've got our eye over here. And some of these might still be done as eyes, but maybe some of them perhaps not, because, well, I guess I've seen some of this texture on, well, sort of the interior of the demon inside those sort of cut areas. So it seems like not a bad idea to preserve a little bit of that. Right, yeah. And we can certainly go way later than this. I'm also going to make an even, this, like I said, other version had a lot of the purple in it. This is just more straight up, well, clear red as sort of a pink here. So it's sort of a beak. I think we have the same thing going on with the one arm, where it looks very much like a bird's head. I'm gonna go back over here. Ooh, you know what? Boy, a little touch of the, I almost said cadmium orange. A little touch of the clear orange. That's to bring in some of what we're going to be putting, and we already have put on the mouths out here. So remember these? I mean, well, you saw me painting the teeth out here. So we're, in some ways, we're bringing that back over here. We haven't really done that yet. See that? It's got a warmer look to it right over here. So yeah, you've seen. Now that I see, I'm glad we've already done a fair amount of the mouths. I forgot that was actually in episode 2. We had already done that. Little touch of my water over here, and see that just starts to flow. And the big difference there in the color, all it took the slightest bit of that clear orange, and I mean a slight amount. If I go any further with that, I think that's about as much as I'd like to do. I'm hoping that this also can help create sort of a central focus here. If you have some of the orange, some of the green all together, tough to balance, but if you can manage it. So that eye should also stand out, not just because, well, it's not necessarily going to be much darker than the eye, but a very different color from the eye. It should be really interesting to see what happens back here. So that's what we'll do next. We are going to do the eyes. So I think we'll continue on with what we're doing here with some of our gum lines, and then we'll move into the teeth, and then probably get into the eyes. So that's going to be next. So this is going to be the last segment here, and we're going to first we'll put in some of our little teeth here. I just want to get a better general idea of how light those are going to be. We took some of the clear yellow, we put some of the clear orange together. And let's see what happens. Now, these are the poor man's Winsor Newton Series 7s. These are the Dick Blick. They are red sable. And this is definitely, I would say, a darker color. I'm even going to start to hit some of the eyes with it. Gonna get some of these eyes with it because we can glaze some of the clear green over the top. We can do that after the fact. Okay, we're gonna get these guys here. I don't have to be aware of how thin the paint is. There is no thick over thin. There's just paint over paint. There are some pretty big teeth over here. Now, I gotta also remember that the eyes, wow, there's a bunch, there are actually a bunch of small ones over there too. I just noticed that. Now here, I was tempted to throw a little bit of the reddish color there into the recesses of the mouth. Not, as it stands now, I'm not going to do that. I don't even know how much lighter these teeth get as opposed to the teeth in that central part of the portal here. Now I also have the Quad Zero synthetic brush. That's going to definitely come into play here too. But most of these teeth, as you can see, it's kind of a straight shot here. This is the thing that the sables can do. Now, I think it works better on the larger teeth. Some of the smallest teeth, maybe not so much. But we'll say that's going to be an eye. That's going to be an eye. That one's going to be an eye. Here. And yep, there is another layer down in here, believe it or not, with another eye or two or three. Fortunately, these are pretty well hidden, so we'll just, I'm not even really going to put any kind of lighter colors on those. So again, some of these bulbous things might be eyes, some of them may not. Maybe it's sort of the, what is that, the eyes that don't really have an iris. That could be interesting. I'm going to mix myself up a little new batch of this here. Where else? So those up there, maybe those are gonna be, maybe some of these just end up being great. Why? Yeah, you know what? Those might just end up being part of the object source lighting. Well, or just done as a green. These guys up here, though, this would be an interesting transition, maybe. And this is as far as the yellow teeth goes. Everything else is just going to be the greenish color there. So you can see how that brush kind of deforms a bit there. See, it does well on the straight shot, and then as soon as it has to kind of go down in a crevice, it just kind of splays out and does weird things. I'm already going to start going a little bit lighter on some of these teeth here. That might have been more than I was wanting, but that's okay. And these little ones here, there's not as much point as going crazy with tons of shading on each tooth. We do have to think of just the overall nature of this. hit these guys now. There's a little bit too much paint on there. Maybe we'll get these, the larger eyes indicated here. And this is still not the lightest we could even go on say the teeth. There is still, we haven't used any kind of straight up white at all, but that I'm just going to kind of keep in my back pocket for now. That could be teeth. That could also be some muscle striation there. So in some ways, I'm making the eyes lighter here now because I know I wanted to do the clear green with some of the green liner over that. So I think that starts to, yeah, that is, I think we're really starting to, there's a lot of movement now. There's a lot of movement on this. Again, teeth on the outer edge, I will probably just do that with some of the clear green, maybe even mixed with white, if not maybe a touch of cadmium, clear yellow. And some of these tendrils too, those will get some of our green. Just for now, think about those. Let's hit these guys here, these teeth. This mount, what about these teeth? And some of these are actually like freestanding, sticking out teeth, so most definitely a whole ton of eyeballs here. We've got eyeballs down in here. We've got our upper row of the teeth. An eye over here, so let's not deal too much with things over here, and let's get into some of the, let's get into some of those eyes. We talked about our clear green. We also have our clear yellow. And that's going to give us a nice intense color. And the idea is we do ourselves a bit of a glaze like this. See if I take some of that away. This, I do believe, is something that we can do in a bunch of other places with those lights kind of established. And now some of these eyes start to look a bit different. Those start to stand out a little bit more. Hopefully they also kind of have a more of an iridescent look maybe. Now we might go back and do some lining around those, but here we'll catch a couple of these. Like they're sort of emerging eyeballs maybe. Where's my, again, the yellow here with that clear green. The two of them together, a nice strong combination. If you're looking for the equivalent with the oils, just think of the cadmium green light, or perhaps the cadmium yellow mixed with the phthalo green. And I think now we can see the nice little contrast starting to emerge with those reddish colors that we threw in. All right, let's do these. Yeah, get some of the green on the outside here. And like I said, this stuff on the outer edge of the portal, I will just worry about that at another time. Because this is already going to be at least a 2.5 hour video. And much like the Queen, I think that was a good 8.5, 9 hours of tutorials, and then followed by a bunch of time on the live session. Again, the eyes out here. Gonna hit that with some of that green. Now I'm gonna go even more of a clear green, touch of that green liner. On some of the bigger ones, like this. And now it starts to look like some of the eyes from the last one. We can even start to think about some sort of, what is that, the little veins in the eyes, right? Start to think about some of those. I think we're really going to worry about the larger eyes for this sort of a treatment. Also, not afraid to do a little bit of wiping away and removing a paint. Because the eyes, they're not necessarily super smooth. They actually have all of those, because it's like the cones and rods and everything, right? You would sort of be seeing a little bit of that. So you might have blue eyes, but there's all kinds of just different colored strands and everything else in there. So that's what we're kind of going after right now. And this, again, that sort of oil paint habit that is now sort of wandered over into the acrylic side of things. Touch more of that green liner. And I think we're really starting to see the difference now between our eyes and the surrounding tissues. I got these guys up here. Maybe if we do add some more reds up there. Okay, now we're going to go the opposite way. Now we're going to take just some, this is clear yellow, and I'm counting on it being transparent. I'm really counting that being transparent, and it is. Because we're just trying to set up the last of this before we do our slits in the eyes, right, for the pupil. And there might even be one last layer, especially on the bigger ones, where we mix a little bit of the white in with the clear yellow. That's going to give it that one little boost of opacity. Yeah, those are starting to stand out. That's actually kind of driving the camera bonkers. And there's no fluorescent in there. There is no fluorescent paint. No fluorescent acrylic, no fluorescent anything. That is just your clear yellow. And yes, you can glaze opaque or glaze a lighter color over darker colors. We're doing that now. I was kind of hoping that's what would happen. And it would give us this sort of a look here. Now, because it is a clear paint, it could take more passes to make it have that coverage that I'm looking for, just minus the white. I don't want to have to add that just yet. A touch more here. Now we're going to take some of that white. And you can even see, look at that. You can see it there, but now it's going to be sort of scumbled a little bit. So again, to kind of give you that whole idea of the cones and the rods, I might even wipe away some of that. And there'll just be a little bit less of that as we get to the progressively smaller and smaller eyes. I think there'll just be less of it. Now, some of the shapes are a little bit different. Some are more of a kind of an oblong shape. Some are just super, super circular. And they might even get a little bit lighter. In a couple of areas here. On the bigger ones, because this is still nowhere near light. I was kind of hoping to save the brightest sort of yellow white for things like the teeth. So that might be, yeah, that might be the extent of what we're going to do as far as making the eyes lighter. Now these are, I don't know, more of the classic eyes with lids. Those I'm just going to do it another time. Because what I'd like to be able to do is we'll take our little quad 0 here. We are going to throw a little bit of red liner into the green liner, so that just gets it that much darker. It's relatively thin, and let's see what we get here. So we're going to press it down here, and we're going to release some of the pressure there. And there we have it. Very much like what we did. Now, I was also hoping that that touch of the red liner would take it far enough away from that greenish look. So we press it down there, and then we finish off our little topping on it. And perhaps not every single eyeball pointed in the same direction might be interesting. I mean, there's enough of them to choose from. Who knows, maybe even some of these, even though they're not necessarily eyes, get a little bit of a hint of that pupil. Might be interesting. And you can see not every eye is oriented the same way that one is. I might actually canter this a little bit. This I'm just literally moving the miniature itself so that they're not all kind of pointed in the same direction. So that's quite the eye collection there. There can be more. So something like this one out here, barring adding some of the reddish color around it, maybe just a little bit of the darker green. That does have a little bit of the red liner in it too. So now this one up here, also going to get a little bit of a outline to that, but not a complete outline, like a whole entire circle drawn around it. Not doing that. So these little eyes over here are doing their thing. I'm just going to bring in a couple of darks around that eye. We'll have to go back in there, I'm sure, and do some other little detail stuff around it. We've got some eyes over here to do. And I'm sure just in the heat of battle here, there's some that I will miss as far as putting in the pupil. And I just can always go back and just do that later. I'm not sure if that might be an eye or not. We'll just, it's not like we don't have our green and yellow and such. I mean, we're just doing this one here. See, we can actually almost sort of wet into wet that. So yeah, you can do wet into wet with the acrylics. It's just going to be a far more localized area. Now, just for the heck of it here, while I got Mr. Small Brush, I'm going to see what happens with a couple of, yeah, highlights on our teeth. Oh, that's a neat, that's good. I like that. Catching a couple more of these guys. So what I might just do like a brief segment after this. There are some pinks that I like to get here, some lighter pinks in that. Again, it's not going to be super long because, well, exhaustion is definitely setting in and there's a long way to go. And this is already, it will be just as long as what the Queen of Onslaught series was. But I do think this has given you a fairly decent idea of what you've got to deal with on this and maybe how to go about some of it. Mostly some of the, oh my goodness, I didn't realize this moments that hopefully you will not have to kind of go through yourself. And now look at the yellow really does kind of come through. Look at that on those teeth right there. The yellow does start to come through. Because the white, yeah, it's okay, it's lighter, but it's also cooler by and more neutral. The yellow just has a little bit of color to it. I'm also going to do the art coat type stuff, hit it with some of the basically gloss on the eyes so that they have those sort of highlights that just kind of track as opposed to painting in highlights, especially when you got so many eyes coming in at different angles. That to me seems like a better plan. Because I'd like to see what happens with some of the more dazzling pinks and some of the also some warmer colors like that orange that we also mixed with the red liner and the clear red. Some teeth over here on this guy. And now some of the teeth that are in those far recesses, those start to look like they're in recesses as opposed to just on the same level as all these other ones. All right, so that we're going to set up for that next. I want to, especially in this area in here, just briefly hit that with some lighter, basically taking this white here, but look at how that's collecting in the ferrule. Now that's something that the oils certainly don't do. That's why I'm glad I have the brush cleaner. And that would be this stuff right here. You've seen this before. And you see for dried acrylic there. Okay, we are just going to do one last little bout here where we add hopefully some of our lighter, really exciting colors here right in the central part of this portal here and really make that stand out. So we'll do that next. So I wanted to do some of those brighter pinks, orange pinks, whatever. Now this is white mixed with our clear red. So that's going to give me a cooler sort of a pink, whereas when we get the orange in there, I don't want to say that's going to give me more of a flesh tone, but maybe. And now our eye really starts to stand out. Just trying to pick out certain areas here. I'm going to leave the rest for that warmer pink. Now we're going to move on. Move over here. Maybe even have a few shades of this pink. Maybe it's a little bit lighter here. Kind of create some eyelids. We've got this area over here that we'd like to maybe, oh, there's actually supposed to be an eye there and another one there maybe. Bring out some of that lighter pink over here. Now, do I still have any of this orange left? Yes, I do have some orange left. We'll take some of our red, mix it with the orange here. I can even take just a touch of the yellow into that to make it even more of an orange. Gonna thin that down, make sure it's gonna flow. And this is my area that I'm looking for right here. So see those dark greens that I put now? We have more than just a value. I'm gonna get more of the fresh orange out here. Just gonna have to. That was clear red. That looks more like orange. Some of our white into that. This side of our eye, and that really should, yes, between the brightness of it and also that being orange as opposed to something cool like green, even more contrast. And we can go lighter than that. That is not the lightest that I can go. I can most certainly go lighter than that. I would like to see some of these other areas first, though, before kind of playing that last card. See what difference that makes. So again, we're taking our orange here. We mix it with the white. And that really does kind of centerpiece that particular eye. Some of the gum lines here. I'm going to go back over to this pink here, the cooler pink. And we'll do a little bit of gum line work over here. A little bit of gum line work over there. That is going to get into here. Now I'm thinking too that I might want to have some of that clear purple get mixed in a few places here. First, though, I'm going to see how light does this get. This is that cooler pink. How much lighter do we go with that? Again, some of these I may tone down with the glaze when I see kind of the overall thing here. Sometimes maybe when you go to take pictures of something and that's when you first notice, like, well, yeah, I thought that was going to work. Maybe it really doesn't. Because taking the pictures, that sort of lets you step away. Now, the purple, we have some of this white here. Maybe just enough of the red. I just don't want to lose that lighter purple color here. And hopefully this is light enough. And it's going to be tough to get that much lighter. Interesting. I guess I'll have to throw a little more of the white in there. I was thinking about the maiden flesh, but that has a little bit of orangeness to it, so it might gray down that purple. I don't want the purple to be grayed down. In fact, next to some of the other, like the pinks and everything, it already kind of looks grayed down, so we don't want to gray that down any more than we necessarily need to. And we'll do some of our little scumbling over here again because we're not going to be able to do the nifty little wet blend like we would with the oils. Couple more of our purple areas here, maybe even some of these ridges. Maybe even some of these eyes that I thought might be eyes. Maybe we'll just, I don't know, might just cover those up. Maybe they have no irises in them and they have no pupils. I think that means we could actually make a few of those a little lighter. Like this. That might be a little too light. Yeah, I'm going to tone that down a little bit. That was going to get too light. I don't want them to look like the whites of eyes. I just want them to look almost like some kind of sickly, no iris eyes. Give that a bit of a lower lid here. Maybe an upper lid on some. So I hope this last little extra segment here is helpful for the portal and gives you an idea of what it was that I thought about as far as taking the purples and all the stuff that we did out here, trying to bring that back here. Also, I can only hold this in this position so long because there is something. Take a look at that. See those holes in my hand? That is the figure itself, literally poking holes in my hand. Couple more of our teeth here. Some bits of light on our eyelids. So we've got a lot of action here. A lot of action. One last little thing. Now we have our little touch of the clear green with the green liner, and this is where it actually would be kind of helpful to use the oils on some of these largest ones here. And you can see it's got kind of a clear look to it. It's not necessarily covering a lot. We're going to do a little bit of vein action here on some of the biggest eyes here. Some of the biggest ones. It also helps kind of draw some of those darks out over the eye. It will have to be enough water to make it flow. So that, yeah, that kind of helps there. Now, what do we got here? We'll just pop that one right there for the heck of it. You know what? I was not necessarily thinking about putting those pupils on these eyes, but we'll just go ahead and do that on these couple eyes over here. We've got these guys. Again, I thought about not doing it. It really just looks more like they've been forgotten as opposed to intentionally not having that on there. So we'll just go back in and do that. Not everything is a great plan. You'd like to think so. You'd wish they were, but not all plans are fantastic. More of our little irises there and pupils. All right. Well, I do appreciate all the support that all of you kind folks have given us on the Patreon page. It really does, well, it means the difference between like electricity and no electricity and all that kind of stuff. So it is much appreciated. It also means that I can try and do things like this for you. I do hope stuff like this is helpful. I know it's not always the easiest to see, but these aren't the easiest of figures to get on camera. So hopefully this will, if you get one of these, it'll make your process a wee bit easier, and what you know now in advance what you'll have to deal with, and maybe you can create a more thorough plan in advance, just kind of based on what you've seen here. So thanks again, everyone, and I will catch you on the next. I'm sure there will be many more of these creature caster large demons yet to come. So there's your portal. And I'll have a bunch of pictures of this too in your closing credits. So thanks again, everybody.